Karen called police when I blocked my own drive 24 hours. Later, HOA barred her from the neighborhood. It was a quiet Saturday morning when everything started. I live in a small suburban neighborhood where most people mind their own business. My house sits on a corner lot with a long driveway that leads straight into my garage. It's my property, and I've lived here for almost 6 years without any problems. That morning, I was working on my truck. I had the hood open and my tools laid out on the driveway. To make things easier, I parked my second car sideways at the entrance of my own driveway so no one would accidentally pull in or block my space. I had barely started tightening a bolt when I noticed someone staring at me from across the street. It was my neighbor, or more accurately, Karen. If you've ever had a neighbor who thinks they run the entire neighborhood, you already know the type. She had moved into the community about a year earlier, and since then she'd made it her mission to complain about everything. Kids playing too loudly, dogs barking, someone's trash bin being left out an hour too long, and apparently now my driveway. She marched across the street with that familiar look of annoyance. "Excuse me," she said sharply. "You can't park like that." I looked up from my truck, confused. "Park like what?" She pointed at my car, blocking the entrance of my driveway. "That's against HOA rules." I blinked. "This is my driveway," I said calmly. "Yes, but blocking it like that could cause traffic issues," she insisted. "Traffic issues?" On a quiet residential street where maybe 3 cars passed an hour, I tried to stay polite. "I'm just working on my truck. It'll be there for a while." But Karen crossed her arms. "Well, I'm reporting this." I shrugged and went back to my work, assuming she was bluffing. But about 20 minutes later, a police car slowly pulled up in front of my house. I honestly thought something serious had happened nearby. The officer stepped out and walked toward me. "Morning," he said. "We got a call about a vehicle blocking a driveway." I pointed to my car and laughed slightly. "Yeah, that's my driveway." He paused, looked at the house number, then at the driveway. "Wait, this is your property?" "Yep." The officer sighed like he had already figured out what was going on. He glanced across the street where Karen was watching from her porch like she was waiting for a victory. The officer shook his head. "Sir, you're not doing anything illegal. You can park on your own driveway however you want." I nodded. "That's what I thought." He thanked me for my time and left. Karen looked furious, but that should have been the end of it. Unfortunately, Karen wasn't finished. Later that afternoon, I received a strange email from the HOA. It said there had been a complaint about improper vehicle placement and obstruction of community access. I couldn't believe it. Karen had actually reported me to the HOA too. Now, normally HOA complaints take days or weeks to process, but something about this one seemed rushed. That's when I remembered something important. 2 months earlier, I had installed security cameras around my house because of a package thief in the neighborhood, and those cameras had recorded everything. Karen walking over, her yelling at me, her standing across the street filming my driveway. Even better, the footage showed that my car never blocked the road or sidewalk. It was entirely on my property. So instead of arguing, I simply replied to the HOA email with the video footage attached. I explained calmly that the complaint was false and included the police visit as well. Then I forgot about it. Until the next morning. Around 10 a.m., I saw 2 HOA board members standing outside Karen's house. They were talking to her very seriously. She looked shocked, then angry, then embarrassed. About an hour later, I got another email from the HOA. But this one was very different. Apparently, Karen had filed multiple false complaints about different neighbors over the past year. The board had warned her several times already, but calling the police over someone parking in their own driveway was the final straw. The HOA board reviewed my footage. They also spoke with a police officer who had responded to the call. And the conclusion was simple. Karen had abused the HOA complaint system and wasted police resources, so the board made a decision. Within 24 hours of her calling the police on me, Karen was officially barred from submitting HOA complaints and temporarily restricted from attending community meetings. In other words, the self-appointed neighborhood rule enforcer had just lost her authority. The funniest part, later that week she walked past my house while I was working outside again. This time she didn't say a single word. No complaints, no lectures, just silence, and my car, still parked sideways in my own driveway, exactly where it belonged. Outro YouTube engagement. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below. Also tell me what country you're watching from, because I always love seeing where everyone is from. And remember, sometimes the people who complain the loudest end up creating the biggest problems for themselves.